Have you ever looked back at a financial decision you made and just thought, what was I thinking? Why do we sometimes decide to work less right after getting a great pay raise? Or, get this, save less money when the bank offers better interest rates? Well, it turns out it's not as illogical as it seems. There are these hidden forces, a kind of constant tug of war going on in our minds that actually explain these bizarre choices. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with 3 economic puzzles that seem to defy all logic. And then I'm going to show you the one powerful underlying theory that neatly solves every single one of them. It's pretty cool. All right, first up, let's just dive right into 3 situations where the way people actually behave seems to fly completely in the face of common sense. Okay, here's puzzle number 1. The first thing you learn in Econ 101 is the law of demand. When the price of something goes up, people buy less of it. Simple, right? Obvious. But what if I told you there are these rare, totally real situations where the exact opposite happens? And for our second head scratcher, imagine your boss calls you in and offers you a much higher hourly wage. Your immediate thought is probably, awesome, I'm going to work more hours and rake it in, right? Well, you'd be surprised how often that's not what people choose to do. And here's our last one. Your bank bumps up the interest rate on your savings account. You're getting a better return on every single dollar you put away. Logically, you should save more. But incredibly, sometimes people see that higher rate and decide to save less. I know, these choices sound totally irrational, but they're not. There is a powerful, hidden logic going on under the surface. The secret to cracking all 3 of these puzzles? It all comes down to a constant battle that's happening inside our heads pretty much every time we have to make a choice about money. So I want you to think of any economic decision you make as a mental tug of war. The moment a price changes, 2 different effects grab the rope and start pulling your decision in opposite directions. And if we can understand these 2 forces, we can solve all of our puzzles. So these 2 forces are called the substitution effect and the income effect. The substitution effect is pretty straightforward. It's your inner bargain hunter. When something gets cheaper, you're more likely to substitute it for other things that are now, relatively more expensive. The income effect is a little different. It's all about your purchasing power, how rich or poor you feel. A price drop makes you feel richer, and when you feel richer, you tend to want to buy more of the things you enjoy. Let's make this real. Imagine the price of Pepsi drops. The substitution effect immediately kicks in and says, hey, buy more Pepsi. It's a way better deal than pizza now. Simple enough, but at the same time, the income effect is whispering, whoa, I have more money left over now. I feel richer. I can afford more of everything. So for Pepsi, both of those forces are pulling in the same direction. You're definitely buying more Pepsi. But for pizza, it's a total toss-up. Okay, so now that we've got those 2 forces in our toolkit, let's go back to that first crazy puzzle. How on earth can a price increase actually make people buy more of something? This really bizarre thing happens with a very rare type of product, an economic curiosity called a Giffen good. It's named after the economist Robert Giffen, who first floated this wild idea. Now, this only happens under a very specific set of circumstances. First, the item has to be a basic staple. Think rice or potatoes. And it has to take up a huge chunk of a very poor household's budget. So when the price of that staple food goes up, that family suddenly becomes significantly poorer. The income effect is so massive that they can't afford any of the better foods anymore, like meat. So to get enough calories just to survive, they're forced to buy even more of that cheap staple. It's a rare case where the income effect is so powerful, it just completely steamrolls the substitution effect. And you might be thinking, okay, that's a neat theory, but does this actually happen in the real world? The answer is yes. Historians think this is what happened with potatoes during the Irish potato famine. But more recently, a field experiment in Hunan, China gave us solid proof. Researchers subsidized the price of rice, making it cheaper. And what happened? Poor households actually bought less rice, and they used that extra money to buy other kinds of food. It was the first hard, real-world evidence of a Giffen good in action. All right, now for puzzle number 2, the pay-raise dilemma. How can earning more money per hour lead someone to work less? Well, it brings us right back to that internal tug of war. So a wage increase puts our 2 effects into a direct showdown. On one shoulder, the substitution effect is yelling, your time is worth more now. Every hour you take off is costing you more money. Get back to work. That pushes you to work more. But on the other shoulder, the income effect is saying, hey, you're richer now. You can afford to buy more stuff. And one of the things you can buy is more free time. And that pushes you to work less. So which one wins? Well, it depends. This conflict leads to something economists call a backward bending labor supply curve. At lower wages, that substitution effect is usually stronger. As your pay goes up, you work more. But once people reach a certain level of income, they start to feel comfortable. And at that point, the income effect can take over. They decide that more free time is actually more valuable to them than even more money, and they start to cut back their hours. And if you want to see a really dramatic example of the income effect just completely taking over, all you have to do is look at what happens when people get a massive, sudden windfall of cash. Yep, when someone wins the lottery, their income goes through the roof, but their potential wage per hour hasn't changed at all. That means there's no substitution effect pushing them to work more, just a gigantic income effect. And the result? Nearly 40% of people who win big in the lottery just quit their jobs. They use that newfound wealth to buy a whole lot more leisure. And that brings us to our third and final puzzle, the savings paradox. How can higher interest rates, a better reward for saving, actually make people save less? You guessed it, it's another classic showdown between our two effects. The substitution effect says, save more. Every dollar you save today is going to be worth even more in the future. It's a great deal. But the income effect pushes in the other direction. If you already have some savings built up, a higher interest rate makes you feel wealthier. You might look at your retirement goals and realize, hey, I can hit my target by saving less now, which frees you up to spend more today. So what's the final outcome? The wild part is economic theory can't tell us. It's genuinely uncertain. It could really go either way. Which effect wins that tug of war depends entirely on a person's individual goals, how much they've already saved, and what they want out of life. And this isn't just some academic puzzle. It has enormous implications for government policy. Politicians often talk about cutting taxes on savings to encourage people to save and invest more. But, as we've seen, if the income effect is the stronger force for most people, that tax cut could actually cause them to save less, the exact opposite of what the policy was designed to do. So let's wrap this all up. Obviously, nobody is walking through the grocery store consciously calculating their income and substitution effects. Of course not. But this whole theory is a really powerful metaphor for that invisible tug of war that's always happening inside our minds. It shows us that even our most puzzling, most seemingly irrational choices have a hidden, predictable logic to them once you know where to look.